Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Is the Pictures podcast. I'm your host, Max Colville, and I'm reporting from the Toronto International Film Festival 2022. It's finally back this year. We're on the ground and all movies in person. I'm glad to be back at TIFF. It's always an exciting time, and the festival street is once again going on King Street, and everybody's outside seeing the stars and everything. I tell you, one of the first things that not the first things I saw today, but I was outside after a movie that I'll be talking about, and the Taylor Swift fans were all really excited to see Taylor Swift, even though they maybe didn't get into the conversation with her. They still wanted to get a glimpse at their idol, and it's just electrifying when you're outside of people like that and they're so excited. There's nothing quite like it. As for the movies themselves, I've seen 6 now. I've been here for a few days, and the first one I saw was one of my more anticipated movies from the fest end of the year, and it's Ruben Östlund's Triangle of Sadness. And this one won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. Famously, I guess he for his last 2 films, Triangle of Sadness and The Square, he's won the Palme d'Or award, and they're not equal in quality, right? Like I actually think I prefer Triangle of Sadness quite a bit more than The Square. So if you enjoyed that, then you'll probably enjoy Triangle of Sadness. The movie begins with these 2 models, right? And one's a male model, one's a woman model, and it's just like funny, like how they have their relationship and their different strategies, right? Like the Triangle of Sadness is separated into 3 different chapters, and the first chapter really goes into the relationship between the 2 models, and then the second chapter sees them on a yacht, which is probably what most of the promotional materials you've seen regarding Triangle of Sadness. And then there's a third section, which I won't spoil during this capsule review. I hope people get to see that for themselves. But where was I? So the 2 models go out to dinner, and Ruben Östlund, the director, is famous for his like uncomfortable social situations, and like just asking whether or not something is morally correct or incorrect. And one of the big arguments at the start of this movie is like, who should pay the bill? And it's quite hilarious, and I think he gets a lot of humor from uncomfortable situations, and that's maybe why I love his work. When they get to the yacht, it's a lot like the structure of the film takes a different turn, and we follow the 2 models still, but there's a lot more extended cast, and the idea is they're on this like really expensive yacht, and you see the dichotomy between the rich and the crew, and how they just get whatever things they want from the crew, and it's really ridiculous. It's At times it feels like it's just like banging you over the head with the allegory of like, oh, this is like the rich versus the rich versus the poor. But I don't know, even though it wasn't too subtle, I still enjoyed it. And the third part of the movie, I didn't expect it to like last as long as it does, but it is definitely a significant part of the runtime of the movie. And I really enjoyed that as well. Some of the cast included with Triangle of Sadness, like Harris Dickinson plays Carl. He's one of the leads in it. The late Charles B. Dean plays Yaya, the ever model. She surprisingly passed away recently after an illness, and it's certainly shocking. Uh, Woody Harrelson appears in the movie. It's billed as like Ruben Östlund's like first English language film, and uh, I think he does an excellent job for it. It's not easy to um, like switch languages in films, and sometimes it's easy to get lost while trying to do that. Um, there's a character that doesn't come in right away, and comes in really on the third section of the movie. Let's see. So like I was saying, one of the actresses that really like does phenomenal work doesn't come into the movie really until the last chapter of it, and that's actress Dolly De Leon, and the Filipina actress is just amazing in the third part of this movie, and I could definitely see people loving her performance as one of the best of the year as a supporting role. It's just really memorable, and like I said, I think the people of Ostlands will fans of Ostlands will obviously really enjoy Triangle of Sadness. Everybody else, I think it's a pretty approachable movie. I didn't think The Square was as approachable as like Force Majeure, but definitely Triangle of Sadness. It's easy to see why the Cannes jury was so enamored with it. It's just a film that you really want to see with like a large audience if you can, because it's just at times absolutely hilarious and ridiculous. So it's easily my favorite that I've seen thus far at the festival after 6 films. The next movie I saw was the new film by Hirokazu Koreeda, and it's called Broker. And the setup is that there's boxes that are left for people to anonymously drop off their unwanted babies. And the idea is you have Song Kang Ho and Dong Won Gang playing the leads here, and they are guys who are brokers, and what they do is they take unwanted babies and sell them to couples that can't really have them, whether it be because they've tried in vitro fertilization or they just can't really have children any other way, and the adoption process is just too difficult, so they illegally purchase these children. There's just one catch in this story, and that is that the mother of the abandoned child comes back and participates in the selling of her own child. The actress is Ji-Eun Lee, and she's also known as IU in Korea circles, and big K-pop star. So she's been getting a lot of notices for her performance in this, and it would be all too easy if that was the only drama going on in the movie. But also, there is the like almost like the police chasing them and just waiting for them to make the deal so they can arrest them on the spot. And it's one of the police officers is portrayed by Donna Bay, who was in Atlas, Cloud Atlas, and some other Wachowski sisters films. So there's a lot of familiar characters in this. Koreeda is a Japanese director, of course, directing a fully Korean movie, so that's pretty interesting. But it's for Koreeda, it's pretty traditional. He's telling stories about found families, but he has a cast that's really up to the task in this one. And why I don't think it was my favorite Koreeda. It's definitely a big step up from his last outing with the truth that he tried to do, and I think that it's certainly for people who liked Shoplifters. I think they'll find a lot to like with Broker as well. The third movie that I saw was this movie that's going to be released by IFC Films, called Corsage, and it stars Vicky Krieps, best known probably for her role in Phantom Thread, and I guess she was, yeah, she was. I'm looking up right now. She appeared in M Night Shyamalan's The Old, that came out like a year or two ago. Maybe people will remember her from that. Um, in the movie, she played. This is a fictional account of the later years of Empress Elizabeth of Austria. And so the movie takes place in like 1877, and um, she's turning 40, and for, I guess, women at that time, they didn't have an life expectancy much past 40. So she was like nearing the end of her life and her career, and the only thing that she has left to do is just maintain her public image. And certainly, if you saw the Princess Diana movie from last year, Spencer, you know that there's a lot of pressure on the royals to have exacting looks and never appear out of sorts, and she has a lot of things that she has to deal with with turning 40. Her husband, His Majesty, still has wants and desires, and he is looking for a new mistress to have more children with, and she's also wanting more from her life other than just sitting there and looking pretty. She wants to look at new technologies, and or even help her husband govern, and he just won't allow that. And so the movie, it's funny because if I know I might be talking to only a few people, but if you're not familiar with the clothing of a corsage, it's like it tightens you, right? It's like all the lace, and really like makes it so you can't breathe. And so I think that's a good name for this movie, because just everything around her and the expectations are just getting tighter and tighter, with no allowance for anything else, for any allowance for her own pleasure. And she's feeling restricted by that. I think I've admired the film a little bit more than I enjoyed it. It's definitely like a somber movie to watch. There's not like anything to really break up what's going up on screen. And the Vicky Krieps' character is just constantly facing situations that she just doesn't get out of very well. So I have mixed reservations on that one. The next three movies will be from like day 2, and I started my day off with watching the new Weird Al Yankovich biopic, if you will, and it's officially called Weird: The Al Yankovich Story, and it's set to premiere on the Roku channel for free. So I imagine that if you're interested in this, you're probably going to watch it anyways, because, free is a really good price. This movie is from the team at Funny or Die, and the idea is to... I didn't know this until I saw the movie, but I guess like a decade ago, the director of this film, Eric Apple, made a fake trailer of a theoretical Weird Al Yankovic biopic, and the trailer itself was a total farce. And I guess like it starred Olivia Wilde as Madonna, and I forget who he said was who played Weird Al in that old version. And apparently Weird Al liked it so much that he plays it at like all his concerts just that trailer for like the last decade. And so when it finally came time to like maybe explore turning that trailer into a feature film, Weird Al was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, let's do this." And um, the movie isn't like a straightforward biopic. Let's put it that way out of the front. It's kind of like a hee hee ha ha type thing where they obviously know that they didn't want to make a traditional biopic, and you're supposed to laugh with them along the way of this kind of bizarre alternate history that they've created for Weird Al Yankovich. And while there's some really funny parts, there's a bit maybe like a half an hour into the film that is easily the funniest thing to come out of it. It's just a really clever twist to the material. I think it's just like a joke that's kind of stretched too thin. If you were looking for them to play like the greatest hits of Weird Al, there's a lot of memorable stuff that he did parodies of, right? Like a Surgeon and Eat It, and what else was there? There's Amish Paradise, My Bologna. So like a lot of his most recognizable works are in the film. But I think that's what I liked the most about was like the music and the performances. Daniel Radcliffe plays Weird Al in this version, so and I think Evan Rachel Wood is playing Madonna. So you see them, and that was funny. The way the movie structures is that it's really like the '80s era for Weird Al. It doesn't really go beyond that, and he kind of like the way that the movie's like made is almost like Pee-wee's Big Top or like those old Pee-wee Herman movies from that era, which is funny. And it has like a lot of like cameos throughout the movie though for people you wouldn't expect. And I'm not gonna spoil them here. When you see the movie, you can see the different cameos and be surprised when they come up, and it's pretty funny. That's like a mixed recommendation. I mean, like, it's funny, but I think it goes too long, and it's a concept that's probably better suited for like a 3-minute trailer as opposed to the full length movie. So after I caught the Weird Al movie, which was funny because it was playing like in a really small theater. It was playing at the TIFF Lightbox, and that ended up being a problem for like a lot of press wanting to cover the film because like the venue was so small despite a lot of the press wanting to see the movie. So I don't know if they'll add another press screening or what have you, but a lot of people are interested in the Weird Al Yankovic movie, and for however I feel about it, I think like if you have a chance to watch it when it comes out on Roku, for the low cost of free, I definitely would recommend it for that. If nothing else, to see like just how deep the rabbit hole goes with this interesting biopic. So the next movie I saw was this film that is also coming out from IFC Films later this year. It's called The Lost King, and I guess it's directed by Stephen Frears, and they were reading off his movies, and like it's funny, like I'm like of the ones I've seen, maybe I like half of the ones that he's done. I think he's done like Philomena and like Foster Jenkins or something like that with Meryl Streep, which I didn't like at all. But this one's called The Lost King, and it's a very, very British movie. It stars Sally Hawkins it's based on a true story. So she plays this woman who becomes obsessed with the history of Richard III. So I guess the story is like Shakespeare made a play of Richard III, and it's a pretty famous play, I guess. And but she starts questioning the whether or not it's like valid the story of Richard III, like or if it's just like theatrics, because like Shakespeare um, would have wrote the play like 100 years after Richard had died, so he didn't have like a first-hand account of who Richard was. Um, so she starts becoming obsessed. She goes to different Richard III meetings and takes out a lot of reading materials, and just really dives headfirst into um, his life and history. And ultimately, that leads her to the question of where Richard III might be buried. And that like really consumes her. So, other than that quest, uh, the movie co-stars like Steve Coogan, and he is like her ex-husband, but they have like a weird relationship. It's bizarre because like they're like really friendly and they raise their two sons together and see each other a lot, but like they are definitely exes. So that's kind of a weird relationship, and there's certainly a lot of extra cast in there that uh, adds a little flavor, but not really all that memorable. What I really thought helped elevate the film, other than just like being a kind of like, oh, we're looking for this thing and let's watch Sally Hawkins try to like get through it, is this idea that, well, not this idea, but that was the score by Alexander Desplat. If you've listened to the podcast, I've said multiple times that I've enjoyed his scores, and the score really tries to like make this material more exciting than it is. I was, while I was watching it, I was just looking at one scene and I was just like, wow, without this music here, this would be like incredibly dry. Like I don't know, burnt toast dry. And the music certainly helps moves everything along. And even though like I don't really care too much about the royals, and I wouldn't know who Richard III was if you asked me 100 times, I ended up becoming very interested in the story over the course of the movie, and really caring whether or not she found him. Um, I guess when you have a movie named The Lost King, you kind of have the understanding that she's probably gonna be successful, because why the heck would they make a movie with with something that wasn't successful, right? It would never have gotten popular enough. But even if that's the case, it's really fun seeing them get there. So the last movie I saw today was this like really small Canadian film called This Place. It's the first feature film from director V.T. Nayani. And yeah, it takes place all in Toronto. Like I said, it's a very Canadian film. It stars Devery Jacobs, who's best known for her role on Reservation Dogs, and I guess Priya Guns, who I didn't know her too well, but stars the two of them, and it's described as a coming of adulthood story about two women falling in love for the first time, but it's much more than that, right? It's really about these two young women like coming to terms with their histories and their familiar ties. It seems like there's a big background with like where they come from and their ancestral homes. And even though like the movie itself like definitely felt like a first movie director, it had some cast members who just read their script lines kind of stoically, and even some of the writing wasn't like ideal, but even so, I admired it. It was a movie that like really interested me and like gave me a gateway into lives that I would never have any like reality towards, right? Like I would never like have to worry about those things of like my ancestral home, being a cis white American man, right? That's just not something that I have to worry about in my day-to-day life. But it was intriguing to see their stories and find out their truths in this movie. And I don't think it has any like distribution or anything like that. I hope that like people do get to see it who are interested, and uh, it's a pretty cool movie. It's called This Place again. Uh, I hope that people get to check it out. So that wraps up the first 6 movies of TIFF. I'm calling it TIFF Days 1 and 2 as a podcast. I'm exhausted. I am going to leave this as like a pretty rough podcast episode, and you can see the written capsule reviews probably sometime this week. I'll get to them. I think I just gotta stick to the podcasting for now. Anyways, if you've enjoyed this, you can find the podcast at It's the Pick Pod on Twitter. I'm at MH Colville on Twitter. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review, 5 stars, help us reach more voices. You could tell us what movies out of TIFF that you're looking forward to. Whether or not you've heard some great reviews and there's something you might want to see. You can always get more information, like I said, in written capsule reviews from the It's the Pictures Substack. That's itsthepictures.substack.com. And yeah, that will wrap things up for the first dispatch here from TIFF 2022. I hope you've enjoyed it and found some new movies to watch, and talk to you again soon. Bye.